Why can't football just be about football? That's all I want. I'm not asking for much, just football. That's a tweet from a friend of mine, and I've seen many tweets like that. It's kind of the sentiment around many football fans the last couple years, but especially around Pittsburgh Steelers fans. And really, that is only possible in a dream world, especially here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, especially around Steeler country, as the fun never ends and more Steelers coverage is off the field as more Steelers drama erupts despite finally coming off of a victory on the field. This is another episode of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, coming at you from the Beaver County Auto Studios here atop Market Square in downtown Pittsburgh. And that's right, it is once again more drama around the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here you go. Antonio Brown says someone stole $80,000 and my gun. And that headline is stemming off of an excuse of his now from the breaking news of the day, or week really. Antonio Brown sued, allegedly nearly killed a toddler in furniture smashing rage. So Antonio Brown allegedly throws furniture off a balcony back in April, dealing with several lawsuits from that. TMZ reporting both of those stories today, as they always love to break the news when it's drama, and that drama always surrounds the Pittsburgh Steelers. And despite 2 touchdowns, despite 100-plus yards, despite the Steelers' offense finally clicking and coming off a victory, and Antonio Brown and Big Ben finally getting rolling, the news of the week is off the field, and it is Antonio Brown allegedly throwing furniture off a balcony back in April down in Miami, where he is certainly a godlike figure, and dealing with several lawsuits stemming from that. Again, this is another Radio Gold edition of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. This is the Beaver County Auto Studios, and I am your host, Mike Asti. You can see it there, Mike Asti, at MikeAsti11 is where you can find me on Twitter. And Antonio Brown complained back in training camp. This is how he opened up this season. He complained back in training camp after he got off the helicopter that brought him to training camp that the media was too obsessed with him, that all we wanted to do was cover the negative, we were bothering him, and really we were looking for problems, and that we're just too obsessed with him, and all we care about is Antonio Brown and the drama. And I don't normally do this, despite not minding promoting myself, but I think a tweet of mine is going to cover this perfectly. I'm going to try to scroll back and find it, but to paraphrase kind of what I was saying, as I wouldn't read it exactly anyway, Antonio Brown's celebrations, they're entertaining. Many people criticize him, mostly maybe outside of Pittsburgh, but if you don't like Antonio Brown celebrating, then don't let him score. Antonio Brown celebrating, as many wide receivers do, many athletes these days do, and have done certainly in the past, it's entertaining. I don't mind it at all. I didn't mind when Terrell Owens signed his autograph on a football. I didn't mind when Joe Horn was talking on a cell phone, those back in the day old school cell phone flip phones in the early 2000s. I didn't even mind Chad Ochocinco donning a golden jacket for the Hall of Fame that he probably will never be a part of. I didn't mind that. I don't mind Odell Beckham Jr. I don't mind the Juju Smith-Schuster giving birth or whatever that was celebration, or any of the other celebrations that he's brought to the table the last couple years now with the Steelers. Don't mind any of that. So any of those criticisms, that's just ridiculous. That's just asinine. That's just somewhat jealousy, and I wouldn't feel any different if it was anyone not a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So don't like that. Don't let him score. No big deal in the AB celebrations. Showing up to training camp in a helicopter, it's absolutely, hey, look at me. Even though he says that we're obsessed with him, it's flashy. It's, hey, look at me. It's certainly wanting and seeking attention, even though he claimed that he wasn't trying to do so, and he's upset when he gets that attention. That's seeking attention. But again, I don't mind it. I'm not going to have a problem with it. It's still fun. No big deal. But being so enraged that you throw furniture from a balcony and almost kill a toddler, That's going to be unacceptable. That's going to be something that certainly is warranting of criticism, and that's going to be the problem that has brought us now to another drama around Antonio Brown. And I got news for AB. I got news for the girl that tweeted that. I got news for anybody else bringing that to the table, that, hey, I just want football. And getting away from the political spectrum and the national anthem, which took us away from football a lot last year, and I had to deal with a lot in my show on another outlet. A lot was off the field because of that. But if you're just strictly speaking, as I think I know her well enough that she wasn't focusing on the political game, if you're just strictly speaking that you want it to be about football and not about Antonio Brown throwing furniture off a balcony, or about Antonio Brown celebrations, or not Le'Veon Bell holding out, and any of the drama around the Steelers especially, well, it's not our fault. I'm going to defend myself and my colleagues. It's not our fault. It's not the media's fault. We're dealing with and covering what they're bringing us. It's not Antonio Brown having us be obsessed with him. We're not obsessed with Antonio Brown. We like covering him because he's one of the greatest receivers in football, and maybe will go down as one of the greatest receivers in football history. He's on that pace. But the issue is he's giving us drama. Le'Veon Bell has provided us drama and nothing else on the football field this year. We're going to talk about that. That's going to be what we're going to cover. That's national news and unfortunately off the field. And now Antonio Brown, once again in a heap of mess with multiple lawsuits stemming from allegedly, I'll throw it back up there, allegedly, Antonio Brown sued for nearly killing a toddler in furniture smashing rage. Gotta love that. Furniture smashing rage. And I've had maybe some, back in my college days, we all have gotten mad a time or two and maybe have been enraged, but didn't throw furniture off a balcony, didn't almost kill a toddler, and I'm sure he's not going to be suspended. There's not anything going on there. We talked to Mike Tomlin earlier. I was at his press conference, and he basically said he wasn't going to comment on it, claimed not to know much about it. I would imagine him and AB have sat down about this, as they did a few weeks earlier during his outburst on the sidelines, which, again, we had to cover. We didn't want to, but he brought it to us. Wasn't us being obsessed with him. Wasn't us trying to focus away from the football field. It's what somebody on the football field brought to us, and it had to be covered. So, again, not our fault, not the media's fault. And I'm sure you don't want to hear a media member defend the media, but I got to. Nobody else will. Not our fault. We're dealing with what these guys give us. And Antonio Brown is giving us, allegedly, throwing furniture off a balcony and dealing with 2 lawsuits from that. I don't know why he didn't just pay this gentleman off. That's what should have happened here. This is back in April. Amazingly enough, the lid was on it until now. And then reports come out that he didn't want to pay this guy and withheld the money to try to make this go away. I get this guy claims to be a tycoon, and the reports are he was very, very wealthy and maybe didn't need the money, and maybe AB kind of was upset about having to pay a rich, wealthy guy money for something that may or may not be something that he agrees he did, or feels the same culpability that this guy apparently feels of him as this guy, this tycoon, this wealthy man in Miami. The man bringing the lawsuit, one of them against Antonio Brown, the other one was from the luxury apartment complex, the owner of that, is because this man's father and his child, so it was the grandfather and grandchild of this man bringing the lawsuit, and his father claim they were right near Antonio Brown's furniture. They were right near the dresser, the armoire, the table, whatever else was, the coffee table, coming off this balcony, and the toddler almost got hit, and certainly could have nearly killed him if he was almost being hit with this. And again, it could have been much worse, of course. Kind of sounded like a funny cartoon scene. If he were to throw a piano off there, it would be one out of the Roadrunner or Bugs Bunny. But in all seriousness, if this was near a toddler, if it would have hit a toddler, that would have done serious damage, most likely killing the toddler. And that would be far be it to have drama on the football field or worry about his touchdown catches and chemistry with Ben. That would be a manslaughter charge. It wouldn't be intentional, but it would be a type of murder and a much more serious investigation. This is not criminal by any means. This is just a civil situation, and a wealthy man seeking money or wasn't paid off, or however that's going, and then the owner of the luxury apartment complex as well. So eventually I would imagine AB is going to pay these guys off. I don't know why he didn't already. I know the guy's wealthy, but hey, he might want more money. His wealth might not be close to Antonio Brown's wealth, and he may want more money. And hey, that might be why maybe this should have already been put to bed, and AB should have already taken care of this by paying that guy off. Surprising that did not happen, and we even got to this point. But just having to address the situation with Antonio Brown yet again off the field. Tomlin says, hey, didn't know about it, not going to talk about it, it's not going to affect him on the field. And it's just weird and unfortunate because I'm annoyed by this too. I wish we could cover on the field. And if you look back on the archive shows here of Mic Drop on Pittsburgh Sports Live, here in the Beaver County Auto Studios for another shameless plug, a lot of it's been Le'Veon Bell. A lot of it's been the Le'Veon Bell holdout. And whenever he comes back, which the reports are Week 7 during the bye, I have a show planned. I have a former Steeler. I have former NFL player and current media member here in Pittsburgh, will be joining me live here in the Beaver County Auto Studios. And we'll get a former player's take on how he would receive it, Le'Veon Bell. And that's going to be more drama. But it's something that we can't avoid. This, again, though, is just horrible timing because the offense for the Steelers finally started to click. As I'll kind of segue into what actually is on the field talk for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It finally started to click with Antonio Brown and Big Ben, 2 touchdown catches for Antonio Brown. You'll see it there, 6 catches, 101 yards, 2 touchdown catches, 47-yarder, 16.8 yards per carry for AB. Big Ben having a solid game, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, has the 1 pick, but a quarterback rating of 122, completion percentage of 65 plus, 19 for 29. He had a solid game. James Conner, 21 for 110 on the ground, 2 touchdowns as well, 4 catches, 75 yards. You see here on the graphic just off of what James Conner did receiving, a 29-yard catch as well, and then all that production, 110 yards on the ground. And then you get this. So the Steelers, 41 points they put up on offense, 41-17, a big win over the Falcons, now 2-2-1, the Falcons 1-4. Steelers moving in a divisional game, another division rival in the Cincinnati Bengals, who are scoring a lot of points. They're playing better than the Steelers have been this year. Maybe not defensively. Granted, both teams have not been great defensively, but the Bengals beat the same Falcons team a couple weeks ago. They led a lot more points, but they also scored a lot of points in the Falcons. So it's 2 offenses that are going to score, 2 offenses that are now finally clicking, and the Bengals have shown more continuity on offense throughout this season with Andy Dalton and A.J. Green, who have actually, based on the numbers, maybe not career-wise, but this year have played better than Big Ben and Antonio Brown together. They have some injuries on the ground, but still are scoring points and are moving the ball on offense with Mixon and company, and they're going to score. The Steelers now are showing signs with their offense. They also should be able to put points on the board, you would figure as well. They kind of were slow to start this year, but if they keep it up from where they were and there's none of this Antonio Brown drama coming into play, then, hey, you'll see the Steelers score as well. It might be a shootout game because the Steelers defense still something to be desired, even though only allowing the 17 to Atlanta. Secondary still allowing too many wide open receivers. It just still seems like tissue paper thin out there in the secondary, and it goes back to the draft. They draft a backup quarterback to replace Ben in the future within those first few rounds in Mason Rudolph, when maybe you could look at the linebacker position, maybe try to replace Shazier. Certainly no easy task, and that'll bring us into something here in a second that Tomlin brought up, namely off Shazier in that last Bengals game. But if not there, the secondary, something there, maybe a corner. The Steelers didn't really draft now. Kevin Colbert can get criticized for that. They didn't draft for a win-now mode now. They drafted weirdly for the future. But this team, every week, Mike Tomlin tells us, they tell everybody else who interviews them, it's their mentality, it's not up in question. They're in win-now mode. They want to win now. And even 2-2-1, even when they were 0-1 after that first week tie to the Browns, they felt like they could be Super Bowl champions this year with or without Le'Veon Bell. That's the goal. especially with Le'Veon Bell, the team will be much, much better and interesting when he does return. Ben saying he still wants to involve Connor. He's playing better now, had a few weeks off after the week 1 performance, but off that game there against the Falcons, that more of that from Connor, it'll be hard to take him out of the lineup. And the team certainly will probably wrap their arms around him and feel better about him playing for this team than Bell. And we heard all the critical comments the Steelers players said against Bell a few weeks ago and really throughout the season once Bell did not show up for work. But they feel this is win now mode and they didn't draft like it. So maybe now you're still reaping what you sowed in terms of this defense needed improved. It played okay against the Falcons, but it's the best performance of the year and it still wasn't amazing. The Falcons kind of looked a bit off themselves on offense, which helped things for the Steelers, and they also were in such a big lead. They didn't trail early in the game, which allowed them to get the ground game going. That was a key to beating Atlanta. Getting an early touchdown, allowing Connor to do the work, exhaust the Falcons defense, and then pick things up for the Steelers offense throughout that game and get the big victory. That's kind of the key. It was James Conner, it was the ground game, it was getting to a big lead, it was taking over on the Falcons defense, and it was exhausting the Falcons defense off of James Conner on the ground. So the offensive line of James Conner deserves that game ball. And as critical as I've been of him in terms of the over expectations of some Steeler fans, especially the Pitt alum fans or Pitt fans that are Steeler fans, wanting him and just begging him and praying and hoping he's going to take over for Bell and saying, forget Bell, it'll be Conner in the future. I didn't buy that and the evidence wasn't there. The evidence still is out on that. It's been 2 great games and a bunch of mediocrity for Conner through 5 weeks. But when you see games like that, it'll lead him to get more carries when Bell returns. It'll give you more hope for the future of James Conner, whether he be a secondary back or the featured back for the Steelers next year, because obviously Le'Veon Bell won't be back next year. And maybe will be traded even before he returns to the Steelers this year, whether it be week 7, week 11, whenever he is supposed to be coming back and says he'll come back. Maybe he'll be traded before then. There's already reports and talk radio down in Philadelphia are already asking, do you want Le'Veon Bell or not? Because off of their J.A. injury, they're now an opening for a running back for them, and they've been struggling on the ground and maybe would bring Le'Veon Bell over. Second round pick at the minimum for the Steelers in terms of what they would want off of Le'Veon Bell, because, hey, you can get a compensatory pick when him just walking for third round, etc. So got to be a second round or above, and it will for his talent. But some in Philly don't even want him. It'll be interesting. He'll obviously be playing somewhere next year, and he wants the bag. If not traded, he's saying the ESPN report was week 7 during the Steelers' bye he'd return, but week 11 is the max in order for this to count as a free agent year. So more drama will be around the Steelers whenever Bell comes back. It's been drama in terms of covering the Steelers news-wise all this week based on the Antonio Brown allegedly throwing furniture off a balcony back in April and almost hitting and what would have been killing a toddler. Multiple lawsuits stemming from that, so it's not our fault, but more drama off the field coverage from us in media with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and based off just what they're giving us, that's the material they're giving us, and then what we have to deal with. But the Steelers offense, from a positive note on the field, you want some on the field talk, there it is. They're improving. The offense clicks. Ben to AB. Juju still involved, having some fun there with celebrations. James Conner going. That's big, especially needing to do that to keep his spot when Bell returns. But the Steelers defense still, for me, is a question mark and is the reason why. I said this then and nobody wanted to hear it. Many fans ignored it, and even kind of the Steelers did. But the defense is the reason why they lost last year in the playoffs to Jacksonville. It's the reason why they let Blake Bortles go up and down the field and the Jaguars eliminate the Steelers in the second round of the postseason, even fail to get back to the AFC Championship game. The defense is the reason why they lost to Kansas City. The defense is partly the reason why they had that tie against the Cleveland Browns. The defense has been a problem this year, was a problem last year, could hold back this team and may hold back this team with or without Le'Veon Bell. No matter what's going on with Conner in the offense, no matter what's going on with AB on and off the field and all his drama, still catching touchdown passes, the defense could hold this team back, and they didn't draft win now. They drafted for the future, especially defensively. Doesn't make sense. The defense needed improved. We see a little bit, but now this will be key. A great offense in Cincinnati playing very, very well. It's a familiar opponent. how will the defense for the Steelers play? So they're on watch. They need to show up again, and the Steelers offense will. But how will the Steelers defense play? That's going to be key against the Bengals. It'll be a test with A.J. Green and Andy Dalton. And familiar opponent, of course, as that goes off of when Mike Tomlin also had to answer questions, besides just the AB drama, having to answer questions in his weekly press conference, off of Vontaze Burfict, off of the past, off of the Juju suspension and leering over him, the rivalry between the Steelers and Bengals, and if that'll carry over in the Shazier injury. Now, the Shazier injury, they haven't been able to replace him. It was emotional then on Monday Night Football. They don't even know how they got over it. That aside, it'll be interesting, and Tomlin alluded to this after the game against Atlanta on Sunday, after he was done talking about penalties and maybe getting fined from that. But the way this has been officiated this year, the difference with stricter calls and roughing the passer, going back to Vontaze Burfict and what happened last year, the stricter calls just across the board and how tight the games have been officiated and how many penalties the Steelers, namely, have had this year, and even their opponents too. It'll be interesting, and some maybe expect this, if that kind of diminishes, and Cam Hayward spoke on this, the Steelers-Bengals rivalry, or at least it brings it back to normalcy and takes it away from the muck that it was off the field and the craziness of Vontaze Burfict and those incidents. Maybe it'll make this rivalry safer, if nothing else. And absolutely, the game's been too tightly called. It is hurting viewership. It is hurting entertainment aspects of the game. It's a little too ridiculous on some of these roughing the passer calls. What can defenders do to try to not have any contact with a quarterback when they're running full steam? Kind of hard, guys. But it may make this rivalry safer because it's gone a bit too far last few years, and maybe it'll bring this rivalry in and make this rivalry safer. So maybe that'll be another interesting thing to point to. Steelers defense and how the game's officiated and how that affects the rivalry. Two keys to the Steelers and Bengals upcoming game this Sunday. And no, Antonio Brown and the throwing a furniture off a balcony is not going to be one of the keys to the game. But we had to lead off with that because that's the headline. That's the weekly talk. It's off the field. It's dramatic. It's annoying to some Steeler fans. But it's material they're providing us. We got to touch on it. National media are going to do it if we don't. And namely, we're not obsessed with Antonio Brown off the field. We're obsessed with his game, maybe. I'd love to talk about how he's maybe the best receiver in football, one of the best ever, and the 2 touchdowns and him finally getting going. But we can't. We can't lead off the show with that because it's Antonio Brown off the field, didn't pay a guy off, now still the 2 lawsuits. And as much as maybe we have all had these anger outbursts, maybe, some higher levels than others, there's just no excuse for throwing furniture off a balcony. It's acting like a buffoon. And he wasn't intentionally trying to hit this toddler or anybody, and maybe just was flipping out because of the $80,000 that was lost, or he claims stolen from him. See, $80,000 and my gun stolen from him. That's what he claims was kind of what happened. That was a TMZ excuse that was levied by Antonio Brown off of here, allegedly nearly killing a toddler in furniture smashing rage. But that's no excuse either, because even if you didn't mean to do it, and even if there was no intent there, of course, and even if you're just upset at money being stolen, it's $43 million in the next few years. He's a multi-millionaire. He got the bag that Le'Veon Bell wants. So it would be like if someone stole $100 from me and I start throwing furniture out the window off my balcony at my apartment, and I almost kill a toddler, and then I say I was just upset because someone took $100. I don't want to lose $100, but that's no excuse for having that just enrage and almost killing a toddler. If the toddler would have died, that'd be manslaughter, and his football career would be completely irrelevant. So there's just no excuse for these actions. There's no excuse for just many of the antics Antonio Brown has done and has forced upon the Steelers and their fans the last few years. Most of it's fun, and most of it doesn't warrant the criticism. But this year, out of all of them, nobody should be defending this. There's no excuse. Could have been much, much worse. Could have killed this toddler. Maybe even his grandfather. Could have made this much worse. And, again, unacceptable. The celebrations are fun. The helicopter, it's fun. It's look at me, even though he says we're obsessed with him, but it's look at me. but throwing furniture, almost killing a toddler, throwing furniture just because you're upset, and even if it wasn't your intent, that's unacceptable, and that's right now where we are with Antonio Brown. So again, more news of the week for the Steelers off the field, but a big game coming up against Cincinnati Bengals, a divisional game, losing to the Ravens, tying the Browns. They need this divisional win, another division rival they are very familiar with. They know the team. The Bengals playing very well this year, especially on offense, even better than in seasons past. Always a close game when these two teams play. We'll see. I have my doubts and still have my doubts on the Steelers' defense, despite only allowing the 17 to Atlanta this past Sunday. Now, to pivot from the Steelers, who give you really only, or mostly, not only, as I did touch a lot on the field too, but mostly coverage off the field in the drama, because that's just how they are. Very dramatic team, entertaining though, kind of fun to cover in a way, but a lot of the drama off the field. Brings us to the Pittsburgh Penguins, who give you a lot more coverage, and we can cover it a lot more on the ice, a lot more about the team. And when I spoke with Josh Yohe of The Athletic last show, you can also find that there on our Pittsburgh Sports Live YouTube channel. Put that up there for you, Pittsburgh Sports Live on YouTube. I linked it a lot as well on my Twitter at MikeAussie11. You see there below my name, and on the Pittsburgh Sports Live Twitter account at PGH Sports Live. But Josh Yohe was talking about, he opened up even comparing how can you, a lot of these Steelers players, how can you possibly root for them when the Penguins so much to root for, so many great guys, Sidney Crosby, etc., even Evgeny Malkin, Phil Kessel. They're great people in addition to great players, and winning a lot more recently. So that kind of makes sense. But on the ice here, and you can find that Yohe show, our Penguins preview. Nobody's going to preview the Pittsburgh Penguins season better than Josh Yohe. No one's really a better dude in media, too. I've had him on every single show. I've had any outlets anywhere in this Pittsburgh market. Yohe stepped aboard with me, and we put out that golden quality broadcast. You can find that in the archives of the Pittsburgh Sports Live YouTube channel, as well as us, PGHSportsLive.com, on the websites and all over mine, and the PGH Sports Live Twitter account. But the breaking news for the Penguins is negative, just like the Steelers. It's much more negative on the ice, though. AB still putting up the 2 touchdowns despite all the off-the-field drama. Matt Murray, stud for the Pittsburgh Penguins in net, 2-time Stanley Cup champion. Great team around him, but certainly played well along with Fleury on those 2 Stanley Cups. Fleury gone. More than a season removed now. He's in Las Vegas. He led the Golden Knights to the Cup final last year and increased his resume that may lead him to the Hockey Hall of Fame someday. It's Matt Murray's team. Little bit of a down year last year in comparison to where he was before that, and the Penguins obviously did not win 3 Stanley Cups in a row. So Fleury and the Golden Knights going further than Murray and the Penguins, and it's kind of fueled the fire of the Murray-Fleury debate. That will be one of those Pittsburgh sports debates that will absolutely never die, never going to go away. And it's completely ludicrous and asinine no matter what side you're on. But now Matt Murray, breaking news of this week for the Penguins before their game on Thursday, is he has a concussion, will miss that game on Thursday against Marc-Andre Fleury in his return to Pittsburgh and the Golden Knights. Will not be able to play probably for the immediate future. I would imagine, there's no timetable I've seen exactly, but I would imagine several games at the minimum. He's out indefinitely. We'll give that just vagueness. The out indefinitely with another concussion. And I believe this is the 8th somewhat injury for Matt Murray in his short time as a Penguin, the 3rd concussion. So he's been unlucky, to say the least. But what I want to focus here on, as I round out the show and bring you some Penguins coverage, it was well received with Yohe, so we'll keep it moving throughout the Penguins season, in addition to the Steelers and whatever else goes on here in the Pittsburgh sports world, is this now has re-energized the Fleury-Murray debate. You see a lot of comments, whether it be on Kongursky's Pittsburgh Hockey Now or many other sites or many other articles. Never read the comments, but if you do, and I did to prep for the show, a lot of it is, oh, I wish Fleury was still here. Oh, now this shows they should have kept Fleury. They should have traded Murray, the value, etc., etc. Oh, Murray going to be injured all the time. We can't trust Murray in the future. It's just such revisionist history, and it's just incredibly unfair. Really, really is. Really unfair to say that now looking back, the Penguins should have kept Fleury. I know Fleury led the Golden Knights to the Stanley Cup final. There's no guarantee he would have done that with the Penguins. He played well last year, but his season last year was maybe arguably the best season of his career. And that's by the numbers, and I'm not exaggerating. It was one of the best seasons of his career, certainly better than any of the previous seasons he was with the Penguins, and certainly for a while he hadn't had a year like that with the Penguins. It was an elite goaltending year where he was MVP of the Golden Knights, and he, on his back, led them to the Stanley Cup final as an expansion franchise, first in franchise history, and as an expansion franchise, first as an expansion franchise. So it's incredible he did that. It will add to his resume, and really maybe he even needed to do that to bolster his Hall of Fame candidacy. But that wasn't the Fleury that they let go of. That wasn't the Fleury they exposed in the expansion draft and let go to Vegas. That Fleury wasn't with the Penguins then. They weren't seeing that production from Fleury. That Fleury of last season with the Golden Knights was better than they had seen the last few years of Marc-Andre Fleury splitting time with Murray and losing his starting job repeatedly to the young stud that was Matt Murray. Matt Murray was outplaying him continuously, whether it be in the regular season or in the playoffs. And Fleury had his moments. He had that Game 7 win against Washington where he took over for Murray during Murray's injury and was able to lead the way. And it's pretty much without a shadow of a doubt, regardless of where you are in the debates, they wouldn't have won back-to-back Stanley Cups. The Pittsburgh Penguins would not have won back-to-back Stanley Cups, for a newsflash to Fleury, Murray, or any Penguin fan out there, without the contributions of Matt Murray and Marc-Andre Fleury. They needed both of them. But it was the obvious choice to keep Matt Murray. Much younger, just had won 2 Stanley Cups, 1A, 1B, whatever you want to call it, but he was the starter of those 2 years, most of those playoffs. He was the guy. He was their future. You knew that entire season, even Fleury winning that Game 7 against Washington, that it was Murray's team eventually, and more of that being a swan song for Marc-Andre Fleury, let him go out on a high note. And they both get credit for the Stanley Cups. They both split time and really were part of what was needed to win those cups, especially the second one, with Fleury contributing more on that one than he did on the first, especially in the playoffs. But even in the regular season, helped the team. So they both, without the two of them, they wouldn't have won those 2 Stanley Cups back to back. But Murray was much younger. Yes, his value might have been higher on a trade because of his age, but he was much younger. He would have brought more in return because every other team wanted him more, but also the Penguins needed him more. He was their guy of the future, and every other GM in the league would have done the same thing. You would have kept the young, stud, hot hand who won you back-to-back Stanley Cups along with Fleury, a guy who was having rookie seasons compared to Patrick Waugh, at least in the playoffs. That's who they would have kept. And Marc-Andre Fleury at the time, there was no one expecting him to do what he did with Las Vegas in terms of be an elite goaltender, be an all-star, stand on his head, and lead the team to the Cup final. Nobody was expecting that. And if they say they were, they're flat out lying now. Nobody was expecting that. So it's ridiculous to go back in time because Murray's now injured again with another concussion. He's been unlucky. He's going to miss time again. And say that they should have kept Marc-Andre Fleury. Nobody could predict this. Nobody would have predicted this then, even the biggest Fleury supporters. And there were many. And he did a lot as a Penguin, so it's valid. He was a great guy too, and it's understandable. But even those never thought going into last season that he was going to stand on his head, be an MVP for the Golden Knights, and lead him to the Cup final as an expansion team. No way. There's no way they thought that. There's just absolutely no way they thought that. No way. So it's revisionist history, completely asinine to say now, 3rd concussion for Matt Murray, and Fleury leading the Golden Knights to the Cup final, going into Fleury's return to Pittsburgh, which is part of how this gets brought up, and Matt Murray missing that game, that all of a sudden now they should have kept Fleury. the shelf life for longer term and more success in the future is still on Murray's side as long as he's healthy, and health could be a concern, of course, with these concussions and 8 injuries. But nobody predicted this after Fleury left. So you got to put your head to where it was a couple years ago when they exposed Fleury and kept Matt Murray. He was younger. He was playing better. Fleury wasn't giving you what he gave last year to the Golden Knights. It wasn't close. And the expectations, like for any other GM and any other team, would have been Murray was the guy for more of the future, which is what that decision was made out of. So I think it's ridiculous, revisionist history, to say now, off the Murray concussion, oh, they should have kept Fleury. But Matt Murray also maybe could use this time off. Obviously, you don't want to have him having another concussion. He's vulnerable to that now, and it's not a good sign for the future of Matt Murray and the team, and he's been unlucky. But 1-1, a 5.47 goals against average, not like an ERA, but for the baseball fans. But 1-1, 5.47 goals against average, and 831 save percentage. So Murray not exactly playing well this year, and we've seen the Penguins have to get over an off game from him against the Washington Capitals and win that in overtime, then have to lose a game as Matt Murray, allowing the 5 goals to Montreal, and he's not played well. Maybe this time off can get his head back in the game, can help him maybe get a fresh start on the year. You can see the Matt Murray you saw in the playoffs a couple years ago. Maybe Matt Murray can once again be that guy for the future for the Penguins off of this time off, and eventually he will come back. It's not a season-ending thing, or we don't know that now. So get Matt Murray back there as soon as possible. Make sure he's ready when he's back. Make sure he's healthy. His health is the really only question here. He's not played well this year. There's jokes now about maybe he can see the puck better with a concussion. It happened in practice. It wasn't during the Montreal game. It wasn't during the Capital game. It happened in practice, according to Mark Sullivan and company, and what the Penguins are releasing. So believe him or not, but they're saying it wasn't in these games when he wasn't playing well. And maybe this time off will get him back going. He'll be able to play better. Hopefully this concussion bug doesn't stick with him and he can stay healthy. But completely ridiculous to go back in revision history and now say they should have kept Fleury. Nobody was predicting the future of how well Fleury played and the injuries and concussion with Matt Murray back then. So you can go hindsight being 2020 on that one. And the future is Matt Murray, like it or not. The future is Matt Murray with the Penguins, and he's had bad luck. He hasn't played well so far this year. It's only 2 games, no reason to freak out. But the concussion is a serious thing. He'll get back from that. Hopefully doesn't have to deal with it much in the future, and then can play better. Maybe a fresh start to the year will actually help him. And that brings us to this. Penn's locker room. Pittsburgh Hockey Now. DeSmith, the man for foreseeable future for the Penguins. Like that headline. Like that headline for sure. Casey DeSmith, the man for the Penguins in the foreseeable future. Matt Murray, like it or not, is the future of this team. He is the future of this team, but he has a concussion. He's going to miss the Vegas game. He's going to miss several games out for the immediate future. And third concussion for Matt Murray, not good. Not good. Still the guy that you keep. He's still the future of this team. Still won those 2 cups and was better a couple years ago than Fleury. It was the obvious choice. Ridiculous to go back. But not good with the concussions and 8 injuries in several years. So more luck is needed for Matt Murray. But Casey DeSmith, the man for foreseeable future for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And brings up now another debate, the Fleury-Murray debate that'll never leave us. Brings up now Casey DeSmith or Tristan Jarry. What are you going to do? Casey DeSmith beating out Jarry to be the Penguins' backup this year, thinking he was going to get spotty starts for Murray, who was able to be the guy. Murray now out with another concussion. And Casey DeSmith going to start this game against Vegas. It hasn't been officially announced. It doesn't happen until the morning of the game, but I'll say it here and be confident with it, as this will be released before that game, that Casey DeSmith is going to start that game and should. He's the backup. This is his chance. Maybe he would have rather waited longer. Maybe Jarry, who's had more NHL experience, would be better to put in this situation. But I can't see him being called up just for this opportunity. Murray's out. DeSmith beat him out. He's the backup. So here he is already in the NHL. He's going to start this game. He's going to be the man there for the foreseeable future. And you're going to need to have him now play well. But the Penguins' offense is clicking even while Matt Murray has been struggling. So as long as you keep getting that from the offense, they will score enough, like help them win a cup 2 years ago, mostly off of the offensive production with Crosby, Malkin, Phil Kessel, etc. Even Letang now scoring this year. It'll add more fire punch. They have so much on offense still, and all the way down depth to Jason Gensel and company, that Penguin Jesus shines down on the Penguins offense and has so this year, needing to do some more for the goaltending. But maybe Penguins Jesus can add some luck, and all of us can pray to Penguins Jesus for Casey DeSmith, because he's going to be the guy. He's the backup. He should be the guy. If Murray's out for a long period of time, months on end, then you have to deal with Jarry and DeSmith switching off. Maybe whoever's the hot hand, however you're going to shake that out. Jarry has more NHL experience, but DeSmith currently beat him out, so why not go with him? He should be the guy, and he is the man for the foreseeable future for the Penguins. Played well in Wilkes-Barre when he was there. A lot of guys down there loved him. I had a podcast before my career really took off years ago when he was still down there, and a guy covering that team spoke highly of him. So we'll see. He is the man for the foreseeable future for the Penguins. Matt Murray hopefully gets better soon, dealing with another concussion. But regardless of any of that, it's completely asinine and ludicrous to now go revision in history and say that the Penguins should have kept Fleury. Nobody then was predicting Fleury to do what he did last year with Vegas, and nobody then was predicting Matt Murray to fall off a little bit and have all these concussions. Nobody then was predicting it, even the guys who were on the Fleury wagon. So complete revision in history, and you can't go back in now. But Murray's the guy for the future. Casey DeSmith now is the guy. He is the man for the Penguins for the foreseeable future right now, until Matt Murray takes it over again, and that will be the case then. There's no controversy whenever Murray comes back. But DeSmith got to be the guy until Murray's healthy, and now you want him to be healthy. Allow him to get better off of poor starts. Maybe this will be a new fresh start to him on the year. Let him get fully healthy. Don't rush him. The offense can carry this team, even if DeSmith doesn't play that well in net, because it can't be much worse than what Matt Murray has put out so far this year. Let the offense carry them, Crosby and company, if they have to. DeSmith the guy temporarily. Murray the guy for the future. Marc-Andre Fleury over there in Vegas, playing well again for the Golden Knights. Probably not back to the Cup final like they were last year. He beefs up his Hall of Fame resume. He'll be a hero here in Pittsburgh regardless, but it had to be Murray. It had to be Murray then. It's Murray now. It was always going to be Murray. So the Fleury-Murray thing, just no reason to go back in time now. And nobody was predicting what happened in the future back then. If they say they did, they're lying, and I feel comfortable in easily calling any of my colleagues liars if I have to. But I want to remind you as we close things out to subscribe to us there, Pittsburgh Sports Live on the YouTube channel. Follow us at PGH Sports Live on Twitter. You can find these shows linked up there. You can find all these shows on the YouTube channel, and if you subscribe, you'll get notifications of whether a show is live, uploaded, whatever. Anything we do, covering games, Alan Saunders at Pitt games, covering the Tomlin press conference, any Steelers coverage, Dan giving you everything he can in the locker room for the Penguins, and with Pittsburgh Hockey Now, even Pittsburgh Soccer Now has joined the fold of the show last week, and some Riverhounds on the airwaves and their postseason game. So we got it all on Pittsburgh Sports Live, and make sure, there you go, subscribe. You'll get notifications. It'll make it easier for us to get to you. That's the most important thing. Pittsburgh Sports Live there on the YouTube. But Beaver County Auto, thanks to Beaver County Auto for this Radio Gold broadcast, our sponsor, sponsoring all of our shows and our content here with Pittsburgh Sports Live. We are here in the Beaver County Auto Studios atop Market Square in downtown Pittsburgh. And the Steelers gave you the drama off the field. The Penguins give you some drama, or at least negative attention on the ice. Matt Murray out with a concussion. DeSmith, the future, foreseeable future for the Penguins off that Pittsburgh Hockey Now headline. Gonna stick with him. The Penguins offense can carry it, though, but Murray, hopefully, doesn't have to deal with concussions much in the future. And Antonio Brown, we're not obsessed with you. We're dealing with what you give us. It's your material. You didn't pay him off. You probably should have made this go away. You didn't. It could have been much worse. Throw furniture off a balcony, and now you're dealing with those lawsuits. So despite the 2 touchdowns and Steelers offense clicking, it's more talk, it's more coverage about off the field. It can't just be football, thanks to the Steelers. Blame them. Don't blame us. And Antonio Brown, if you're going to act a fool on the field. Act a fool with your celebrating. Much rather that than acting like a cartoon character throwing pianos and furniture and armoires and coffee tables off balconies. Just, we can't be doing that. I'd love if we could when we get upset these days, but it just doesn't work. Nobody can get away with it, so neither can you. It's been another Radio Gold Golden Quality Edition here of Mic Drop on Pittsburgh Sports Live right here in the Beaver County Auto Studios. I'm Mike Asti, conquering sports radio one day at a time.